Hey guys, RPM here. Alright, hope you're all doing well and have another great day. In this video, I have an interesting one for you all, mainly for those that are getting into mining. And what I want to go through in this video is each individual mining rig part that you need for a mining rig. Okay, so mainly for those that are going to be getting into mining, or maybe those that are, maybe looking to build more mining rigs and wanting to see what types of hardware is available out there today. And I'm going to show you guys real examples on like Amazon and a couple other mining hardware websites that you can buy these readily available mining rig parts for mining. Okay. And yeah, this is going to be a really long video. Hopefully you guys will enjoy, but I'll have links down below for everything that I talk about. And yeah, I'm just going to go and talk about a lot of different things. And just a disclaimer, the parts that I show today is a very specific, mining rig build. Okay. There are many different motherboard combos, processors, RAMs, hard drives, risers, splitters, GPUs, right? Which I'm going to talk about. There's many different variations out there. And so hopefully in this video, I'm going to explain different scenarios and just talking about power consumption, and hopefully it'll help newcomers coming in just to understand, power consumption and what types of parts you need. Okay, so I have two different mining rig examples here. One that is strictly focusing on GPU mining, okay, not CPU mining. And then I do have a second mining rig example here that focuses on CPU mining and of course GPU mining as well. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna go through every single thing here, guys, and hopefully you guys enjoy. So I'm gonna start off first with the Intel based mining rig, which is just focusing on GPU mining only. Okay, so looking at what's available today. Okay, so all the parts that I talk about is stuff that I see that's available. So if you guys are watching this video maybe a month later or maybe a couple days later and it's all sold out, well, it's because people who are watching this video maybe bought all the stuff already. So I know that a lot of people are getting into mining right now, and I get the question of, yeah, Red Panda, what types of parts do I need for a mining rig? And man, I know it changes every day, as typical mining motherboard is just unavailable. And just a disclaimer as well, I do have a video or multiple videos on showing how to build mining rigs. What I talk about today will also help, if you guys watch this video, to help understand how to build a mining rig, all that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about specifically in this video, the types of, the parts that are available today for a mining rig. So anyways, let's begin, guys. Let's do mining rig number 1. Okay, so this is going to be with an Asus Prime Z590-V motherboard. Okay, so let's talk about this first. This motherboard, which is available on Amazon, it's about $158 right now. And this is going to be a board that it has the Z590 chipset. There is a B550, but it's about maybe $30 or $20 cheaper, depending on which model you get. In my opinion, I would rather go with the better chipset, which is the Z590. That's the latest Intel chipset right now, LGA 1200. And the processor that we're gonna go with this motherboard is gonna be this Intel Gold G6400. Pentium Gold G6400 processor, and it's only $100 for this processor. The price can range, and there is another model that you can get. It is $64, the G5920, but this is not a gold edition. The difference between this one and the gold edition one is that there's hyper-threading on the Pentium Gold 6400. So essentially it says here it has 2 cores, but there's hyper-threading, so theoretically 4 core, but then the other one here is only a 2 core. Okay, this doesn't have hyper-threading, so just a little disclaimer there. So the price difference is $35. For mining, you don't really need much processing for GPU mining anyway, so this one is a little bit more cost effective, but for me personally, I would go with the G6400, so you get a little bit more processing power with the hyper-threading. Anyways, so that's the processor, that's the motherboard. Now there is a caveat to this motherboard. Okay, so this one does have 5 PCIe slots, okay, and also 3 M.2 slots. So natively, if you wanted to plug in 6 risers, you would not be able to. You'd only be able to plug in 5, because you can see the 5 PCIe slots here. There's 2 X16 and then there's 3 X1 slots there. So that's perfect for 5. But then you're asking, Red Panda, well, what about the 6th one? Well, there's 3 M.2 slots here. There's one right here, and another one right here. And what you're going to need to get in order to get the 6th GPU to work, or 7 or 8, because there's actually, like I said, 3 M.2 slots. So you could technically have 8 GPUs on here if you wanted. You'll need to buy either, a couple of these. This is the M.2 to PCIe adapter. Okay, let me just blow this up so you guys know what I'm talking about. So that's what they look like. So this will go into the M.2 slot, okay? And this is where the riser will plug in. So it's just basically making another PCIe slot on your motherboard so that you can plug in a riser, okay? Which, if you guys don't know what a riser is, I'll be talking about those in a second. There is another option you can get here. It's an M.2 to USB, so you don't require to use the X1 adapter on a riser, which I'll show you guys in a second, okay? So I've had no issues with these 2-pack NGFF ones. Works really well. Another place you can buy these actually is from Bees Crypto Mining. So they actually have M.2 to USB adapter version here. And another thing you can buy is the 1 to 4 USB hub here. But this is more towards those that maybe bought a micro ATX motherboard, or maybe an ITX board that only has 1 PCIe slot, or the MATX one has maybe 2 PCIe or 3 PCIe slots. Then you can expand an MATX board with one of these adapters, and then you can get 6 GPUs, right? Well, 4 on this and then 2 on the other PCIe slots, if that makes sense to you guys. Okay, going along, guys. Now, okay, so let's go back to our list here. We talked about the motherboard, we talked about the processor, we talked about, we didn't talk about the RAM. So the RAM is something where, yeah, you can buy RAM anywhere. It's pretty cheap right now. I highly recommend getting the Corsair Vengeance. This is a 16 gigabyte, DDR4 3200, and you can get 2 8 GB sticks for $69 or $68.99, and you would just need 1 stick. Okay, you can save the other stick for another mining rig that you're gonna buy. So if you were to buy just one of these sticks right now, I think it's like $42. So it's better to just go ahead and buy this kit instead, because you're saving like 23 bucks or something if you were to buy technically 2 of them at $42 or something, $40 or something. So better to buy this, and then you have 1 extra stick for another mining rig down the road. And for those wondering, maybe, what type of RAM do I need for my mining rig? It is dependent on just looking at the motherboard specs, okay? Just looking at what is compatible natively. I don't generally buy overclocked RAM for mining. I just buy the ones that are natively supported. So I'm on the Asus website on the technical specs of the Z590-V, and they will tell you here on the Asus website, or any other brand manufacturer website, well, they will tell you the native support for the RAM, okay? So I just went with 3200 on this one, and that is all you need for this mining rig. That's it, okay? This RAM. So that's perfect. Okay, going along, guys, next part we're going to talk about is now, so we did the M.2 to PCIe adapter. We talked about that. We talked about now the hard drive. Okay, so the SSD is now something where you can use any SSD. And it's going to depend also if you're going to be using like Hive OS or Linux or Windows mining. As for Windows mining, I highly recommend getting an SSD that's at least 240 gig or higher, because there is going to be a potential issue where you need to use more virtual RAM, virtual memory, as that's a setting you have to change if you're going to be Windows mining. Okay, so you have to be mindful of that. But if you're going to be Linux mining, you don't even need a 120 gig. You can maybe just go get away with a 30 gig SSD or a 60 gig SSD. But 120 gig SSDs are cheap enough, and for myself, I use these Kingston ones. I've had no issues with these, and I use them for Hive OS, and it's just perfect. But again, if you're going to be going Windows, you can just get 240 gigabyte SSD or higher. And really, the price difference from 120 gig to 240 gig is really not that much. It's like $5 or $6 difference. And if you were to go 500 gigabyte SSD, let's see how much these cost right now. Yeah, it's about another 20 bucks more, 30 bucks more, depending which model. Anyways, that's the hard drive. Not really a big deal, but yeah, hopefully I explained that the best I can. Okay, next one is you may need a USB to SATA adapter. Now, this is mainly for those that are going to be using maybe Linux mining like HiveOS or something, or simple mining. There are ways where you can install HiveOS on a USB stick and then, install it that way through the computer to the SSD. So then you don't need to purchase this USB to SATA adapter. Okay, this guy right here. It's only $12, and I personally have this one specifically, and I use this for all of my mining rigs. You just need one, because as you're gonna be plugging this on your PC, and it takes like literally less than 3 minutes to put the image of HiveOS on the SSD. Okay, so this is mainly, you're just gonna plug the SSD into here and then into your Windows computer, the USB part, and you're gonna be using Balena Etcher. I'll have a video down below showing you how to burn HiveOS on an SSD using one of these adapters, okay? But there is other means out there. There is other ways to install HiveOS manually if you want to, but I find it much easier just to do it this way. $12, can't go wrong. That's all you need to do. Oh, there's a beautiful picture showing you guys how to do it right here. Okay, and once you're done, you just take the SSD out. Okay, next mining rig part, my friends. Let's go. We need to talk about now the mining frame. Okay, so the mining frame is it's gonna depend on what you like and maybe the looks, maybe your OCD, but on Amazon, they actually have a lot of different mining frames available. I personally haven't had any experience with these ones here, but I had experience with these, like the Kingwin ones that look like the Veta frames. I haven't seen this one before. Yeah, these Veta ones are very popular. A lot of people have them. Honestly, this is something where you guys will have to do your own research. There are a lot of mining rig frame reviews on YouTube. Just go check them out. I have a bunch of these. These are the AAA Wave style ones. Looks like it's 119 here, but if you go to AAA Wave, they sell it for $179, and there's another AAA Wave mining frame here, which is really good, 6 to 10 GPU, and so there's options here, options on Amazon. Anyways, this is going to be like kind of objective for those depending on what you're wanting to achieve. So I can't give a specific mining frame that you need for mining, but you can't go wrong with one of these 6 to 8 GPU frames for $63. That's all you need. You also can't go wrong by just buying like a shelf and retrofitting it to hold your GPUs that way. There are tons of examples out there doing that way. You can buy like chump change hangers or something like that. Hang your GPUs on a wire shelf. There's so many different ways. You can go to Home Depot, buy aluminum angle, wood, build your own mining rig frame for cheaper than $58. Maybe not. The effort actually to do that, it may be just simpler just to buy a mining rig frame like this, or spend a little more, get something that maybe a little bit more utility, has fans and stuff on it if you need to cool your GPUs, which I'll talk about in a sec here. Okay, next mining rig part that you guys will need is the PCIe risers. Okay, so there are many places where you can buy risers, but the obvious one, you guys may have heard me talk about them before, is gprisers.com, also gprisers.uk if you're in the EU. Now, there are these 8 capacitor risers, which I think are probably one of the best risers out there. And this is all you need. gprisers.com. Use offer code RedPandaMining if you need 10% off. A little bit of a shill there. I don't get any commission off of it, but I give you guys 10% off using my coupon code there. Okay, but yeah, GP risers. These risers are one of the best. A lot of people use them. Tried and true. I've had no issues with them. There is also beescryptomining.ca. So if you're in Canada, they're also a great option to buy risers as well. So they also have these different colored risers, all different types here. And I actually did an unboxing of these a couple days ago. You guys should check that out. And so Bees Crypto Mining is also another option. And miningcave.com in Canada as well. They also have risers if you need as well. Okay, very simple, types of risers that you can buy. There's many options out there. You can't go wrong with any of them. Okay, going along, guys. Next one is splitters. Okay, so this is going to depend a lot, which I will explain on the GPUs. But you may need splitters because the power supplies and the GPUs and the PCIe slots. Let me show you guys some splitters here from gprisers.com. For example, these ones right here. I highly recommend these. These are definitely a lot thicker in terms of gauge, and a lot of people, I swear by these. I've had no issues with these. None of them have burned up in my mining rigs. Even with 3090s, these work totally fine, splitting just one. Let me correct myself there. I recommend 2 strands coming from the power supply into a 3090, but I'm going to explain that with the GPUs here in a second. So splitters, you may need these because you may need more PCIe into the GPU, or you may need to split into the riser as well. So this is a good segue into talking about power supplies. Okay, so number 10 here. Now the power supplies, there are many different ones out there, but I'll show you guys what's available today. So what I am looking at here on Amazon is a EVGA Supernova 1300 watt P plus. This is a platinum rated one. I think this is a new model from EVGA. This looks a lot different from their P2, but this is 1300 watt and it's platinum rated, 329. It's a little bit expensive, but you get 10-year warranty. You get a gaming power supply. You get resale value. This is EVGA has one of the best power supplies in my opinion. So these are really nice. And a good thing about this power supply specifically, it's 1300 watt and it also has 6 different PCIe strands. So this one will have 4 PCIe 8 pins ones, and then they'll have another 2 that have 2 daisy chains. So let me explain now the GPUs. Okay, so dependent on the type of GPUs you're going to be using, for example, 6 3060 Ti's, LHR cards. Now these are definitely available. I've been seeing on Newegg. Okay, so for example, let's say you wanted to buy these MSI Ventus 3060 Ti's, 840. And or 890 I guess was shipping depending on where you live. And this one has let's see here, this one has a single 8 pin. All right, so this is perfect. If you buy 6 of these, you can use this 1300 watt power supply, and you can dedicate 1 strand here. Each strand will be dedicated to a 3060 Ti, and you will then need to use a splitter because one end is going to go into the 8 pin of the GPU and the other end is going to go into the riser, because the riser requires a 6 pin as well. Okay, so let me just show you what I mean here. Let's go back to the riser and let's go back to this picture right here. So you can see the riser needs a 6 pin for power, and there is another one over here if the cable's too short. All right, so you don't use both at the same time, you just use either or. Okay, and yeah, so that's what you need if you have a GPU that has a single a single 8 pin here. Now if you run into sometimes you may run into a GPU that needs 2 PCIe 8 pins. So look at this MSI gaming one. Let's just see if it shows. Yeah, so right here this has 2 8 pins, or 1 8 pin and 1 6 pin. So there is going to be an issue with cabling here. So I did tell you before, there is 4 PCIe into 1 8 pin. Okay, so that will work if you can split it. That'll work for the GPU itself. So I would take 4 of those splitters, all right, and split all 4 of these PCIe strands, and then put these 2 ends into the GPU. Now you're going to be asking, Red Panda, what about the PCIe riser? Okay, so the issue is that we don't have enough PCIe for the risers. Now you're going to have to utilize the Molex here. So there are 2 Molex strands, and I would dedicate 1 strand for 2 of the PCIe on the riser. And so I would dedicate 2 of the Molex ports off 1 strand for 2 of the risers. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Let me show you guys what I mean here. So the risers do have a Molex port on them. Okay, right? That's not a good one here. Let's go to this one right here. Okay, so instead of using the PCIe, you can use the Molex port. All right, so this is totally fine for 3060 Ti, for 3070s, totally fine to use Molex here. Just don't use the PCIe to SATA, right? Don't use SATA. I don't recommend using SATA for anybody, so you'd have no issue in doing that. Okay, and then the next, the other 2 strands you guys may be asking is, yeah, Red Panda, this one has an 8 pin and a 6 pin, so that's great. So what I would do is split the 8 pin on the other end there, okay, the 8 pin, and then the 6 pin can go into the GPU. Or what I've done before is, this end right here, you put the splitter on, and then the other end will go into the riser. Okay, so the splitter will put this into 2. You put both of those into the GPU, and then this one that's daisy chaining off will go into the riser. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you guys for those that have 2 PCIe slots there. And okay, so now you guys may be wondering, we're talking about just 3060 Ti's. Yes, we're talking about 3060 Ti's only. And I'm also correlating with that these GPUs are going to be undervolted in terms of power. Okay, so that's another thing to be mindful of when you're going to be mining. It's best practice to undervolt your cards and get that perfect efficiency, because you don't want to run your GPUs at stock power consumption. Okay, so what I mean by that is, for example, if we looked up the 3060 Ti gaming, this MSI card we saw on Newegg that's available to buy, it's TDP. That's the total power draw is something that you want to understand, because you can see here the total power consumption of this GPU is 220 watts. So that's if you don't apply any undervolt or anything like that. It's just going to run full bore, and you never want to do that. For mining, you undervolt. Okay, so for the 3060 Ti, and this is an LHR card, it's going to take, depending on which type of coin you're going to be mining. So I have a varying range here in terms of power consumption, 840 watts to 1000. So for mining Ethereum, I've seen these cards go up to around 330, maybe 340 watts, and you'll get about 47 mega hash. But at the higher end, if you're going to be mining, like, let's say Ravencoin or maybe an algorithm that's a little bit more power hungry, these GPUs can take a little bit more, 160, 170 watts. And so you just want to be mindful of, how much power capacity you're going to need on the power supply. Okay, so this 1300 watt EVGA will be perfect. It'll be, you'll get the power capacity for 6 3060 Ti's, no problem. So you do the math there, 220 times 220 watts times 6. Okay, it's going to be a little bit over than 1300 watt, but I'm pretty sure this EVGA one will go a little bit over. Again, you're not going to be running your GPUs at max power. You don't want to do that. You want to do it at the most efficient way. So I'll talk about more of that in the end. Okay, so going along, guys, just now I put all different types of other models here. Now, I don't know if all these availability of all these GPUs is going to depend. Okay, so just be mindful of that. What I'm talking about here is just hopefully helping you guys understand power consumption, plugging in the cables, all that kind of stuff. And you may see here down here that there's maybe 3 3080s or 3 3080 Ti's or 3 3090s. I am correlating that with the power supply capacity here. So if you're going to be adding another 3 to do like 6 3080s, highly recommend getting a second 1300 watt. Then you'll be good. You'll probably need the 24 pin splitter adapter to combine them together if you're going to use 2 power supplies. So that's something to be mindful about. Oh, I forgot to talk about the Parallel Miner 1400 watt power supply. So this is another option, not just that EVGA one I talked about. This is another great option for those wanting to use a more cost-effective power supply. This one only costs $208, and you get the cabling, you get the ZSX Amp Edition board, and for those that don't know what this board is, it has the ability for you to do 24 pin and the 8 pin CPU. It basically turns an HP server PSU, like a server power supply, into an ATX power supply. Okay. And another thing though, to be mindful though, in order to use this type of power supply, you need to have 200 to 240 volt. So you cannot run this on a typical home residential power like this, like a 120 volt or 110 plug on your wall. It's not going to work. Okay. So if you're planning on doing something like this, you gotta have 220 or 240 volt. Okay. So what I mean by that is something like a 30 amp breaker. Okay. Which will give you a lot more capacity, 7,200 watts, but you want to be mindful of the 80% rule. Okay. 5,700 watts or so. You just to do the calculation. So you can see here, I have 236 amp or 236 volt here. And then my amps I'm using total right now at that time for my mining rigs was about 22 amps. So you do 22 times 236, and that is the power consumption that you're getting here. So it shows here 5,350 watts Okay, so that's how you do the calculation. Just be mindful. You want to do the 80% rule every time when you're going to do something like that. And if you're going to be doing something like this, have a 240 volt run, you want to make sure you have an electrician wire it into your circuit panel. Okay, that's something to be mindful of. Definitely go watch this video. How do I power my mining rigs? That deserves its own video to talk about, because I wish I could talk about it in this video, but this video is already way too long. Already so much to talk about, guys. This is the first mining rig, running rig number 1. Hopefully you guys can understand here what parts you'll need to build a whole mining rig. And I have 12 and 13 here. These are just optional. For fans, okay, so if you don't live in a place that's not cold and it's hot all the time, then you're gonna need airflow. So fans, either you don't need to buy 120 mil fans. You can just go out and maybe get a box fan or just a shop fan or something that's those fans are actually a lot cheaper sometimes than buying 120 mil fans, like 5 of them or 8 of them, depending on what type of mining frame that you're gonna buy, right? So that's just something to be mindful of there. And then you may need a power button. What I mean by the power button for the motherboard, I forgot to talk about this earlier, but this is something where you may need to, and this is just going to be, it's just going to be plugging in onto the motherboard, but you may not need this. There is another way in case you can just use the screwdriver to short the 2 pins on the motherboard. And then you can simply set the BIOS. There's a BIOS option to set the AC power loss to on. So let's say the power goes out and then your power comes back on, the mining rig will automatically turn back on. Or you can simply just use the PSU on and off switch as a power button as well. Once you have this BIOS option on, then you essentially don't need a power switch, a power button. You can just do it through the power supply. So that's something that you can do. I've done both ways and I've had no issues. Okay, so guys, I think I talked about everything on mining rig number 1. And I talked about being mindful of the power consumption at the wall. Okay, so depending on what GPUs you're getting, and just be mindful of the power capacity, all that stuff. That's really the most important. And the power supply that you're getting, that's the heart of the GPU, of the mining rig. Okay, and understand your undervolts and power for GPUs and overclock numbers for core memory, absolute core clock for NVIDIA to core lock to gain in efficiency. Okay, so I did touch on that earlier, and so there are different things out there that you can help get you more efficiency. There's a lot of YouTube videos talking about which GPUs that overclock settings, undervolt settings for your GPUs. Okay, so just simply YouTube that, and you'll get the result that you need. And I have many videos talking about that kind of stuff. Oh my god, it's already 32 minutes in this video. Let's keep going, guys. I didn't even talk about the second rig here. The CPU mining rig. Okay, I'm just gonna go through this very fast. So you can do CPU mining as well. Okay, and if you want to do that, it can be cost effective as well, but you are gonna draw a little bit more watts, maybe 100 to 150 watts, depending on the CPU, of course. And so just to understand that, I do have a video called a 63070 Ti mining rig for Ravencoin, not Ethereum. And I bought, I think, a 3700X CPU and a Gaming Plus Max motherboard. And I'm mining Raptorium on this mining rig. And it's been going great. But I'm also mining Ravencoin on the 3070 Ti's as well. Okay, so it's a pretty power hungry rig. Don't get me wrong. But it can be cost effective to do, but it's a pretty cool rig nonetheless. And I would say this rig would be for those that are a little bit more intermediate, maybe to those that are already into mining and want to get more difficult, because getting into CPU mining, it's not difficult per se, but when you're mixing GPUs and CPU mining together in one rig, it can become cumbersome in some ways. But to be honest, it's really not that hard, but there are some things that you want to make it efficient. And so the parts that I have here, okay, MSI X470 Gaming Plus Max. All right, this is a very, very, very cost-effective motherboard that you can buy on Amazon right now. I'll have a link down below to it, and it's 89 bucks. All right, or 90 bucks on Amazon. That is cheap. And then to go with that, the CPUs that you'll want for CPU mining is the 3900X. Now, this has definitely gone up in price in my opinion. If you can find it on the used market for cheaper, then go for it. But if you can't, then and if you can't get the 3900X, it looks like they're not even available. So the next best thing would probably be like a 5700G. These are in stock, $329. All right, so it's about $100 less than the 3900X on Amazon, but maybe a 5600G for $239, another $100 off there. So, you know, you're not going to get the same hash rate as a 3900X. Okay, 3900X is going to give you the best, but these other ones here, you know, definitely a lot more cost effective, especially if you're thinking about buying the Intel one. It may be the same price, to be honest, because the Gaming Max motherboard is only $89. So that's another thing to think about, but you are going to be drawing more power. Okay, now talking about the RAM needed, this is another important thing, and thank you to RedPandaMining. RedPandaMining has a beautiful video talking about which RAM is needed, CL14 to CL16. Definitely go subscribe to him. But I have here this type of RAM, the G-Skill Flare X. Now this is CL14, and the timings on this is really good for the CPU, for the AMD CPU, for Raptorium mining or even Monero mining. So you're going to gain a little bit more hash rate for using this type of RAM that has lower latency. And yeah, thank you for RedPandaMining for that comparison there. Okay, guys, so that is the AMD CPU mining rig, and then same thing goes along with the other first rig here, is 120 gig SSD or 240 gig if you're going to do Windows, and then USB to SATA adapter if you need that for mining, if you're going to get into HiveOS or something like that. Mining frame, we talked about that. Risers, yeah, you'll need those. Splitters, you'll definitely need those in case of, depending on the GPUs and the PCIe, you know, the slots on the GPUs. And then now the power supply. So this is going to be a little bit more, I would say you'll need a little bit more here. Okay, if you were to go with these types of GPUs and the CPU mining. So there is an EVGA 600 watt P2. And so this is just going to give you a lot more capacity, actually. I'll have yeah, this is the one right here. So 1600 watt P2 Platinum. Now, the price is definitely not cheap. It's $529. But this power supply is going to give you a lot more capacity, or a lot more power capacity, just in case your overclocks or anything like that go out, or even if your CPU goes up to like maybe 200 watts or something. So if you're going to be GPU mining and CPU mining at the same time, you're going to be utilizing a lot more power, okay, than the other rig if you were not CPU, because the CPU, like the Intel G6400, only going to take about 30-50 watts or something just for the motherboard, CPU, and RAM, right? But when it comes to CPU mining, you're definitely going to be using a lot more, okay? So that's something to be mindful of as well. And I did have different options here. Parallel miner 1400 watt should be fine if you're going to do 6 of these or 6 of these, 3070s, A2000s. You know, these GPUs are 66 watts at the wall, or at the PCIe. They don't even have PCIe power on the GPU. They take the power from the riser. So yeah, it's really, yeah, you could power everything off a single 1600 watt, 1400 watt. Maybe you could get away with a 1300 watt. It is riskier though. I don't recommend it, but for those that are a little bit more, I would say, proficient at mining and understand overclocking, undervolting, you know, you can see your power consumption at the wall, then you probably could get away with doing a 1300 watt, no problem. Like for me, for example, I would probably do 1300 watt, and I could probably mine with 6 6700s and CPU mine at the same time. Or maybe 6 A4000s or 3070s. I would do that no problem for me, because I know the power capacity, I know the overclocks, and I understand the undervolting that I can do on my GPUs in order to not hit over 1300 watts. And of course, you want to try to stay under the 80% rule in that aspect. But I've ran many PSUs at 1200 watt. If it's a 1300 watt, I've had no issues long term. Of course, the efficiency. There is an efficiency curve to get the perfect efficiency number. So, but it's really hard to do something like that. I think 50% is the most efficient on power supplies, but who does that? Anyways, guys, I think that's really it. Fans, power button, all optional. I explained that earlier for the AMD mining rig. So yeah, to each of their own. There's many different options out there, different parts, but I explained the exact parts you can buy today for a typical mining rig. And if you guys need help to learn how to build a mining rig, if you watch to the end of this video, I have many videos on how to build a mining rig. Just search on Google on YouTube here, how to build a mining rig. Mine will come up, mining chambers will come up, many other crypto tubers will come up as well, and they'll explain how to plug in the GPUs, being mindful of the power consumption, overclocks, all that stuff. Okay, my friends, this was the longest video ever. Please let me know your thoughts if it helped you at all. I know most of you guys subscribe to me already understand what types of GPUs, what hardware to buy anyway. But this is more so for those that are new into the mining space. Hopefully that video has gotten to you. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you all. Have a good one, and peace out.